let's get started. So all three of us here, all three of the faculty members, Manan was the first to write the exam. So I'd like to take his feedback, and we'll go section by section as well, and so on. So we'll make sure everything is covered, whatever our experiences have been. I have spoken to all three of them at length over a call as well, and we'd like to give you the most comprehensive discussion, the most comprehensive lowdown, the entire information, and as seen by three people. So it will give you some amount of idea. Obviously, three people can't comprise everyone and everything. Still, two of them went to the center and wrote the exam, and Jignesh wrote the exam online, as we mentioned. So I'll start with you, Manan. Could you just take us through the entire experience, the broad overview of the exam? Yeah.
Sure, sir. Thanks for setting this stage up. So, hello everyone. My name is Manan, and I gave the GMAT Focus exam on the very first day, and I went into a test center on NCP. It was the exam pattern was more or less in terms of going to the center, giving the exam, the formalities was more or less the same. Just that once you enter the test center, you don't get an option to select the B schools to which you want to send the exams. You get instructions, you get an option to select the sequence with which you want to move ahead. There you can select what sequence you want. There are a total of 6 combinations of the sequences, and you can select any of those and you can start attempting. There are 3 sections, the quant, verbal, and the DI section, each 45 minutes in length. You will get one optional break for 10 minutes, and you can take that break anytime in between the 2 sections. If you take it in your first break, you can't take it in the second break. So it's up to you. As per your convenience, you can see what works for you. Talking about the verbal section, there were no...
The order you selected, Manan, just tell. Okay, by the way, all of you should know that there are 6 different orders, 3 factorial essentially, that we can pick up, and any order in any fashion. So there is no particular preference. It depends on you. So yeah, go ahead now.
Right. So I chose the section, the order of verbal, then quant, then DI.
Right.
I went in with the verbal section. The verbal section didn't have the SC section, only the RC and CR. I saw 4 passages from SC, 2 were long passages, 2 were short.
Yeah, so 4 from RC you meant, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. The 2 long passages, something that was different was the 2 passages were broken down into multiple paragraphs. So there were like 7 to 8 paragraphs in one passage, unlike the older one where we had 2 to 3 paragraphs in a passage. In terms of difficulty, I would say some initial questions were tough, but gradually things went on a good track. The questions were very familiarized. The CR was more or less in the same pattern. All the CR techniques could have been easily applied that we are studying at top in the GMAT actual exam. And of course, in the RC, you can easily apply the octave strategy. The strategies are still valid for the focus edition, and you can get a really good results using the octave strategies, understanding the tone and everything. I
have a question here. When you say 7 to 8 paragraphs, were they longer than the overall passage, or the paragraphs were smaller? Let's say we have a passage, we generally have a very long passage in our content, a lot of them. So was the length the same or even longer than those passages?
No, the length of the paragraphs was essentially small. It was like 3 to 4 lines or 5 lines. But if I talk about the overall length of the passage, I can say that 50 words were extra this time. So overall, the passage was a bit long, but the paragraphs in itself were small. And there were questions like, what does this paragraph represent as a whole? Some questions on these lines.
Okay. And did you find anything unfamiliar with the questions? Like this is the structure of the passage or the length, but any particular thing that you feel you would be stuck at or something?
No, I think it was more or less in the same lines. You see the primary purpose questions, you see the inference questions, you get the detailing questions as you got earlier. So things remain same. And as I said, the strategies that we apply in the normal GMAT exam, that is the octave strategy, still stand still and you can apply that.
Reasoning, so you could apply the standard things that you study, right?
Exactly. You can apply.
You were saying you got 2 bold-faced questions, 2 assumptions, something like that.
Yeah, I got 2 bold-faced questions, 1 assumption questions, and I was easily able to apply the negation technique, the bold-faced techniques that we have, and those actually helped me solve the bold-faced techniques really fast.
Okay, and you got more of RC and less of CR. That is also something you said. So can you just give me a breakup? Because other people like Jignesh got a completely opposite picture. So you got more of CR and less of RC. So let me hear from you, whatever your exam was like. Yeah.
So for me, there were, as I mentioned, 4 passages. 3 passages had 4 questions each, and 1 passage had 3 questions. So in total, there were like 15
15.
questions, right, from RC itself. Rest, there were 8 questions from CR. So for me, there were multiple RC questions, and you get the review window after the 23 questions. Of course, I would give one advice over here is don't bookmark a lot of questions and wait for the end to fix them. It's kind of a trap wherein you should only go back to the questions where you feel that you were really close to the answer, and just with some more time you could have done that, because in those last 2 to 3 minutes that you have in the full 45 minutes itself, you can't go through multiple questions. You can go through 2 or 3 questions only if you go through that.
So even before people who are attending the focus edition batches or doing the self-paced course, I've been saying this is more a trap. This is not going to help you, and you kind of validate it as well. That if you really bookmark too many questions and later you go back, you'll also be confused. Anyway, you'll not have too much time at the end. So I think
That
that's enough.
like
Okay,
initially
and
you are giving at least like 2 minutes to a question, more or less, one
right,
and a half.
right.
But in the end, you have like 20 seconds for one
Mhm.
question, and you that might hinder your accuracy for solving that question.
I can just tell everyone here that section review and edit is a kind of trap. All three of them have also validated it, so I'll ask them one by one. But in this case, so Maurya, let me ask you. You were the second to report. What was your verbal section like? I know the formalities and modalities will be more or less the same. If you want to point out something else as well, so yeah, tell me about your verbal section.
Definitely, sir. So, in my personal case on the verbal section, I think the CR was pretty standard. First of all, same as the old section, no surprises over there. And I got somewhere about 11 CR questions and 12 RC questions on my paper. And I feel that I was easily being able to go through the CR bit because I knew the concepts pretty well. I was thorough with those. Next up on the RC bit, I feel that the vocabulary in my own personal case was a tiny bit complex. I think they tried to twist and tweak and trap me in some places, and that was the particular reason why I faced such questions. But and as even Manan said, a little longer, somewhere about 50 words more. But in my case, there was an interesting thing that a few paragraphs were just 2 lines long. So essentially, I feel that even when they are trying to send out longer passages, they are trying to keep the information crisp so that you can easily understand what's going on. So if you have done the practice, if you have, let's say, done the LSATs, for example, right? Uh,
Okay.
yes, sir.
You were saying LSAT papers, right? Okay.
Right. Yes, sir. So if you're doing the LSAT papers on a regular basis, if you've practiced them enough, if you've, let's say, given the sectional test that TOPS provides, it's more than enough to get you prepared for those RCs as well. So since I had done that in the past, no surprises there for me as well. I was well prepared. But yes, that background was really necessary for sure.
Jignesh, you please tell the experience of the online administration first, because you're the only person who wrote it, and then the order of the sections you chose, then your verbal section. So we'll go like that in that sense. Yeah. Okay, Jignesh, we can't hear you. Can you check your audio? I guess. Okay. Yeah, it's actually.
Yeah,
muted.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, I mean, the check-in procedure was pretty much standard. There was not too much scrutiny, but what I felt at the start was the number of instructions as it used to be has somewhat reduced. Okay, earlier
Okay.
there used to be whole page it used to take up for per section instructions. Now it's not so much. Okay, now it's 2-3 lines per section, that much instruction they're giving. And overall, I would say the check-in process was very smooth. Okay, and it really, I think if somebody wants to decide between going to test center or online, I don't think from the admin side, from their side, there is any issue in that manner. Okay, that test is getting dropped, or proctor is, the or your invigilator, that is, they call it your proctor, it is bugging you, nothing like that. It's very smooth. All you need is a stable internet connection, a power outlet, a closed room and well-lit room. That's it. Nothing else. You don't have to go anywhere. So I think online version, I mean, I felt very comfortable with it. Because also I have taken online in the current edition also, so maybe because of that. But the whole process in itself was very, very smooth. Not a single glitch, I would say. So yeah. And as far as the order is concerned, I took Quant verbal DI. That was my order. And verbal section, I felt very comfortable with. Okay, and because I also got somewhat of a mix, but for me, I felt that RC was more about, I think I would say about 12 questions of RC and 11 for CR, something like that. And but even with RC, just as Maurya said, that some questions may have some vocabulary, some passages may be a little bit longer, and that's where I felt that Octave came in very well. Okay, because we think about OCT analysis, we think about not going so deep in everything. Okay, that spending so much time in reading and just applying the OCT analysis and moving forward, that helped a lot. Last question, I had about 3 to 4 minutes left. So that was a positive as well. Question, review, and edit, definitely a trap. 100%, I would say, do not use it. I can say it with quite a bit of conviction, because if you are guessing a question, you are also playing with the GMAT algorithm at the same time, right? You probably get the next question as an easier level and probably affect your score even more. So I think it's probably best to go with, as we did with the current edition, just a linearly. As far as the concepts for CR are concerned, I think even I got 2 boldface questions, just as Manan did. But everything was pretty standard, just as we have in the materials. We talk about 700, 800 PDF, it's a sectional test that we have. I think if that much practice is, far more than enough.
Right. Jignesh, you also said in the morning you got more of CR. So is that just something that you kind of remember? Now you think
I
almost equal?
No, more of CR, definitely. I think I would say somewhere around 12, 13 questions of CR and, consequently 10, 11 questions of RC only. Because my first 4 questions were also CR, in the middle there was, and in the end also 3, 4 questions, it was all CR. So I think I got more CR weightage as opposed to the RC one.
So
Right? But I still got, I think, 4 passages.
Something to summarize it, and because Manan said more of RC. Maurya, you said almost equal, right? 12 and 11, something like that.
Yes, sir. For me, the balance was well maintained for some reason.
And you would also say that it's a mix, right? RCCR, it's the same thing.
Definitely, sir. I think that the it's much more dependent on what difficulty level you're on. I believe strongly on that front. But essentially, if as I said, it was pretty much the same that I witnessed in the previous format as well. So there are no surprises per se, just that you have to be prepared to have some good amount of time management and have some preparation on some longer passages, just to be on the safer side.
Right. Perfect. And take me through, let's say, starting with Manan again, the quant section, and then we'll go through DI like this for each of them. And please, people are asking random questions. Please wait for this. We will open this for the questions bit. But did each of you get 4 RC passes? This is one question, and I hope you can answer. And one of them is saying section edit and reviews not a trap, so you can actually tell why it is a trap. Obviously you can change 3 answers eventually, but why would it be a trap? So one is 4 passages each, and then why do you think it's a trap? Yeah, please, one by one. Manan, you can start, please.
Right. So I would say the review part is a trap for someone who is, bookmarking a lot of questions and thinking with the mindset that I can do these questions in the later end. However, if you are really confident of the things and there is only you are really close to the solution, but you want to bookmark that and you have like sufficient time left in the end, like I had in my quant exam, in the quant sectional test. So that time, the review section is really good, wherein you can again check and proofread what you have written, have a more revision of your answers. But in case you are already lacking behind on time and you bookmark a lot of questions, then it is definitely a trap. you can't focus on the first go in that case.
And Maurya, why do you think it's a trap for you? I mean, or in general, why is it a trap? What do you think?
Sir, I think, as Manan said, I would really second that point. Even I was thinking that when I was attempting the paper, was that if you're depending on it, if you're going into the section thinking that, okay, I'll get this done later, right? You are completely getting trapped over there because you cannot put something at the end. At every question that you mark, you are getting scored, right? You are either going to raise your difficulty level or lower it at the end of the day.
Right.
And that will contribute to your final score. So it's not something that you should depend on at the very beginning, else you are trapped. At the very end, if you have time, let's say a good enough time where you can go back to a question, really think over it and attempt it or change your decision in the first place, then maybe you can think of it as a last resort. But else, I don't think it should be the first thing you can stick on to.
Jignesh, more or less the same answer here, or what is your opinion? Why do you
Yeah.
think?
Pretty much the same. Definitely, when you are putting questions on hold, you are not thinking about the time that you will have at the end. Okay, it's not always that you will have 3-4 minutes left and then you can go back to the
And there are
question.
people who might actually bookmark more than 3 or 4 questions, and then that will be a
Yeah, I mean that is totally wrong, and you're playing with the GMAT algorithm, because now that you are guessing a question, there's a 80% chance that you're getting it wrong, and that thereby you are dipping your overall score. Secondly, if you want to use say bookmark for some question, it could be an RC question, second or third, something like that. Okay, because you see first question and then you go to the second question, and something in the question is there, something in the option statement is there.
very judiciously and for very, very few questions.
Yeah, very few questions. At most that is. Otherwise, I would really recommend, do not think of using it as a strategy.
Right. Okay, and everybody got 4 passes. Can you just confirm? Manan, I know. Maurya, 4 passes.
Yes,
And
Yes, sir. 2 long
Yes,
and 2
sir.
short passages.
all right. So
Yeah,
let's
4 passages.
Yeah. So let's get into the quant section. Manan, can you just start? And you said you could initially there were difficult questions, but you could finish in 20 odd minutes only or something. And you said that. So just let me know, please. Yeah.
So again, the quant section was 45 minutes, and last time I scored 51, so I had some confidence for the quant section. But initial some questions in the quant were a bit tough and required a lot of calculations initially. So I was a bit overwhelmed in the beginning that it's taking time, but I stick to the rule of not spending much time on a question, and I moved ahead in like 2 or 2.5 minutes. Gradually, things got improved and I was more comfortable. One thing I would like to mention is there were many questions from the concept numbers and algebra. And as you all know, our material also focuses and gives a lot of emphasis on numbers. So I think going through every question in the module that we share would be really helpful, because that will give you a real essence of how GMAT focus questions are. If you go for OGs, the difficulty is not of that level where you should actually practice yourself. So having that really gave me a good plus point in order to do a particular difficulty level of questions and perform in the exam. Now talking about the exam, I completed the questions in 20 minutes itself. I got sufficient time to review. So here, since I got time and I can review each and every question, the review thing was not a trap for me in the quant section, because I didn't bookmarked a lot of questions. I just bookmarked 2 questions and I was able to have a look at them and change answer for one of them. So that was a good thing. But if I would have done the same in verbal, it would have been a trap. So the quant section in itself was good. I would say you just need to have more calculations and a more of a logical approach.
All right, Maurya, you got more of arithmetic, I think, and not so many numbers questions. And just tell us about this calculation thing as well. Yeah.
Yes, on my paper, I had a lot of arithmetic questions for some reason, and initially a few algebra, sure, but then it started dominating on the arithmetic side. What I realized was the questions were pretty standard, basic concepts. What they were trying to do much more was trap me a lot and get my answers wrong. So there are a lot more traps now. You need to be on the lookout for every word. You have to go through every word and try to understand if it has some significance.
So do
And
you mean language trap here, or you feel mathematical traps? Like most
so in some questions there were language traps, in some there were mathematical traps. So you need to be on the lookout for both. Anything might pop up at any time. So that was the kind of scenario I was in. And secondly, for questions that they wanted you to spend time on, they would complicate it with calculations only. So that was the only way that they have, very honestly. And I felt that they trapped me pretty well on that. But at the end, I found some shortcuts and got through it. So either you
right.
need to be good with your calculations, quick with it, you need to train for that. Either you should be able to find shortcuts through options or something like that, which can get you through quickly.
Right. So did you get all kinds of questions in quant? That is one question coming again. Okay. Like basic coordinate geometry, basic algebra, inequalities, numbers, arithmetic, like all the topics except geometry, obviously. But did you
Yes, sir.
get a good mix?
I think, sir, except I did not get any questions on coordinate geometry per se, but other than that, there was a good mix. A few questions on probability too. So I think yes, a good mix overall, except coordinate for sure.
All right, Manan, could you just tell what kind of other questions you got? Numbers a lot, algebra a lot, but others?
There were questions from probability, there were questions from permutations and combinations, but adding to Maurya's point, there were no coordinate geometry questions.
Okay. We cover coordinate geometry with algebra this time because graphing and all. So that is there. But probably Jignesh told me. And another thing, you are bringing the idea of calculations. So is it really like you can approximate those calculations? You actually have to write and calculate. What sort of mindset is required according to you? Because we anyway talk about faster calculations, but I don't talk about writing down generally. So just asking these. Yeah,
Sir, I think in my personal case, it was more about approximations. I like on the point, you don't have the access to the calculator, and so you need to find ways at the end of the day. So wherever I
right.
saw 39, I brought it to 40 and looked at the closest answer. So approximations was my game per se.
Manan, in your case?
I did some calculations just to be sure of the things and not to pay more close attention to things. So I use the pen and paper and not approximations, because this time I was like, GMAT has changed and no wonder what surprises might come. Touch wood, there were no big surprises coming in terms of the calculations, and we could do it in the same line. But
You finished it in 20 minutes also. So that means even the calculations didn't take you time, even if you wrote, I guess. So yeah, I think so. Right. And Jignesh, what about your quant section? Let me just hear.
So I got one coordinate question out of all those. And that was also not essentially a coordinate question. It was a permutations question. Okay, so it was
It
just
can
a
be
mix of
asked in permutations.
concepts. Yeah. So it was just that one coordinate question. Otherwise, it was most of numbers and arithmetic. I would say it was a good mix of numbers and arithmetic, but a mix of the both of these concepts. Not there was one or two questions on inequalities as well. So, but I would really say that second Maurya's and Manan's points that numbers and arithmetics are definitely there. They're definitely looking to waste your time with calculations, but options are never so close. So, for example, the options, you can actually use approximations to eliminate option choices because they are not as close as you would expect to get to the T of the calculation. But yeah, if you're someone who thrives on good calculation, who has good calculation abilities, then definitely go for that method.
Okay, how about statistics like mean, median, standard deviation? These things were there or not? Let me just
standard questions from this, simply like the questions we have in our material. We have the median, we have the maximum, we have the range. Okay, then you just put in the values and you approximate what numbers are possible, what are possibilities, questions like this. The ones which are abundant in our material, I think 700, 800 in class guides have so many questions like this. Just those kind of questions in mean, median.
So all of you, as you already are students, you must be knowing that 700 to 800 collection, the largest chunks are arithmetic and numbers. I mean, they're so huge that people probably don't finish. And in the classes also the biggest chunk that we do. And in terms of trickiness, toughness. So please go through class sessions guide and 700 to 800. And also, I think Jignesh told me that data sufficiency, if you go through 436, should be enough, right? I mean, it's later we'll talk about it. Yeah. All right. And yeah, the big surprise section. So I think we have a lot of talk around it. And yes, it was tougher for one could be that obviously the practice you had is with the previous edition and not with this edition. So Manan, take us through the DI section. First of all, how much data sufficiency and how many questions of each of the four types, toughness, everything. Just be more detailed about it. Yeah.
So this question I found compared to the other two sections was bit overwhelming for me. This section was bit lengthy and the questions took bit time. As in, if I talk about the multi-source reasoning questions, the whole scenario was bit lengthy and then the graph was bit hard to interpret. But it was doable because I was able to solve some uh, the IR sets that we get in the material. So with that knowledge and that level of practice, I was able to have an interpretation, but that took some time. So I I would suggest that going through those sets would be really important for the DI section. If I talk about what type of questions,
Just to clear this, because somebody might not be knowing about it. On the portal, in the overall number of sectional tests, mocks, and topic wise tests, DI also has 25 of them. So take care of that. DI means data insights section very clearly. So we'll talk about the marks and everything, guys. Please do not ask. I'll give you all the chance because once again, we want to focus on the discussion we have. We'll give you all the chance. We'll reveal everything at the right moment. Just wait for this, please. So yeah, tell me now about each of the types. Let's
yeah,
say data
exactly.
sufficiency first of all, then graph, table, multi-source, two-part, and toughness of each.
Sure. So I would say there were roughly 10 to 10, approximately 10 data sufficiency questions, and which were almost on the same lines as we did earlier. There were no big surprises coming in, just that you need to be more logical in terms of answering those. There could be some traps in terms of the numbers that they are giving, in terms of the language that they are using. There could be, you need to pay attention to detail. That's the only key
Correct.
takeaway, that it's more logical now, but the pattern, the sequence, the structure is essentially the same.
If you say, let's say, out of 20 questions on these, then 10 would be divided into graphs, tables, multi-source, and two-part. So take us through one by one. What was the easiest part for you? What was the toughest part, and so on?
So I would say that these questions in their base structure, in the core ability, they were in the similar lines to IR. There was no new pattern coming up, but I would say that it's more logical and involves bit more calculations now. So you could expect some level shift up in terms of doing these questions. If I talk about the multi-source reasoning first, there were three questions coming in from there. Like the IR, there were some questions wherein there was a table, we need to select yes, no. There were some tables questions where there were two questions within a question that we needed to answer. And there were questions based on the scenario as well, some critical reasoning or the logical reasoning that we can say, not based on numbers. Other than that, there were graphs which we needed to interpret based on the graphs, analyze what could be the mean, median, mode. There were questions in which we were given some logical scenarios wherein we needed to find, let's say there are two airports, what's the distance, what could be the different paths that we can take, something on that line. So questions were essentially the same. There were again a question on the table format wherein we needed to see what the change happening with one thing increasing or the other decreasing. I would say just go through the questions really thoroughly, and
I think you need a
you
lot of practice for this section. Essentially,
exactly.
that is what you're saying, that you can't just rely on basic knowledge that I'll handle it. Now, also, Manan, one important thing, how much of RC and CR skills come into this and how much math skills I don't think are complicated here. Math is okay, but RC and CR people, because I heard from Maurya also, probably Jignesh also, there are a lot of critical reasoning type of stuff in RC. That means your reading ability is very, very crucial. So what would you
Exactly.
say?
Exactly. I would like to comment that earlier in the IR, we could, just focus on the main part and we somehow got an idea of what would be there in the question introduction or the types of question. But here it was not the case. You really need to go through each word and understand what is there. And the questions are not purely based on numbers. The questions are based on what's there in the passage, what's there in the scenario that they are describing. There are some questions which are not based on numbers, but what could have been done, or what is the inference that is coming out. So in IR as well, you really need the critical reasoning. Sorry, in the DI, you really need the critical reasoning aspect as well. That comes with speed reading and the opinion and the conclusion parts.
Correct. Maurya and Jignesh, you've both been involved with our content development in the data insights part and everything. So first of all, tell the experience and tell what people should do, because you've developed the whole thing, the entire mocks, everything. So just how tough was it, number one, and how much of practice can they take it for granted? Do you think reading skills are important as well as? So one by one, Maurya, can you start, please?
Sure, sir. So I think the whole everything is in the name itself, right? The GMAT Focus Edition. What this exam requires from you is utmost amount of focus at all times. There will be a lot of data in front of you when you'll be attempting any question on IR, the integrated reasoning bit, right? All the 4 types of questions in there. And you will have to filter the right amount and the relevant information for you, and then the question becomes simple. But even for that, you have to go through the complete data. You need to understand everything and then figure out what is exactly working. So I think, sir, the content that we have created, the 25 sectional tests that you talked about, they are of pretty much the same. I would even go a step beyond and say a level above what I attempted
I
today.
saw the diagnostic today itself once again, and I found it way tougher than what you have described to me.
Definitely, sir.
Mm.
I feel that the experience overall for me was much simpler, because when I was creating the content, I was essentially going through every question. I was trying to analyze them itself. I figured out how to go through lots of data sets quickly. So I think every student should definitely give the sectional test just to get used to all those data sets and to understand what to filter and what to, really stick on to. So that is the first important thing.
Maurya, another thing
Yeah.
is related to reading and critical reasoning aspect of it. And also, what was the breakup of data sufficiency versus other questions for
So
you?
yes, sir. So for me, data sufficiency was somewhere about 7 to 8 questions. I got one set of the 3 questions on MS multi-source reasoning, about 2 questions on graphical interpretation, another 2 or 3 questions on table analysis, and the rest on 2 parts. So there was a good bunch, I would say, a good balance. For me, it was not a 10-10 shift. It was more of a 13-7 kind of a thing. But I believe that the exam overall was just testing how fast or how well I can manage my time at the end of the day. The questions were not that difficult, but just as I said, there was a lot to take in and then work on. That was the main reason why it was taking a lot more time for me.
I think reasoning means CR sort of skills also came into play at all, because there is a lot in IR like that. And like you
Definitely.
have to be very fast at reading and interpreting. Was that also very critical? Because I
Yes,
don't think too much about math.
yes, I would say directly, indirectly, both it came into it helped me, because in 2 part analysis, sometimes you get CR questions directly just in a different way, represented in a different way. And indirectly, I think when I was going through all passages and I looked at the question, I understood what I need from what tab is relevant to me, what is important, what I cannot look at. So I think CRRC will really help you on this front, but I would still say a lot of dedicated practice is necessary so that we can understand how to implement, how to put that
Right.
into action. So I think those sectional tests can help a lot on that front.
Jignesh, also in the online version, what was the screen like for data insights? I mean, because we know in the regular version at the center, but online version one, and then describe the whole section as well. Like,
Yeah. So because in the online version, guys will be using your own laptops. Okay, always, for DI section specifically, I would really suggest that you sit as close to your system as possible. Okay, you have graphs, you have tables, they're not always of the exact size that you want to see. Okay, so that is one bit of feedback from my side. Secondly,
1 second, probably could not
as
understand. No, I'm sorry. What did you mean by this? Please just tell me.
So if there's a table, it's probably in an image format, and it may be small, it may be a bit bigger and very clear, but you need to be ready for if the table is very small, it will, if you're
Okay,
sitting,
that
quite
is why you
far
have to
away,
be close to the screen.
you have to be very close to the screen. You have to, give that much, okay, because otherwise you'll find it very uncomfortable going through the data points, because you have to go through the table again and again, probably with the sort functionality. or not all tables have the sort functionality. Some tables do, some tables, some questions don't even have that sort button for you. So you have to go through each and every data point. So for that, this will be a short tip and trick in that case. For the mix of questions, I had somewhat equal. Okay, so DS, I think I would have somewhat around 10 questions, and in IR, I will say 3 questions from multi-source reasoning, 3 questions from table analysis, and two questions from graphical interpretation and two-part analysis. Two-part analysis.
So, I mean, yeah, for each of them, difficulty level, everything. I mean, just in more detail, I'd like to.
Yeah. So for DS, the difficulty level is same as it was with the previous test. If you have gone through the DS traps, if you have gone through the DS 436, this is the golden ticket for DI section. Why? Because it will save you time for IR. That is what we want from DS section. We want to avoid picking up the pen as much as possible, solving as much as possible. And that is what you get when you do DS traps, when you do DS 436. Because when you read the questions, you are automatically able to identify this is where this question is trying to trap me. And you go through the question, you save more and more time here that you apply in multi-source reasoning question, the table analysis question, because they will take some time. Okay, multi-source reasoning, it has 2 or 3 tabs. The mathematics, the calculations is very easy, but you have to go through each and every line, even in the question and in the tabs, because every line has a different piece of information, a data point that you will need to keep in mind while solving the question. Okay, and even in those, you may get a table type question in multi-source reasoning. Then they already have 3 tabs, you have 3 questions, and now you're getting table type question.
Possible in that, yes.
Both possible in that. Yeah, so it will take some time.
What were the toughest here out of these 4 areas?
Multi-source reasoning. I think based on time, because there are 3 tabs, you have different types of information. You have information in the question also, then you have information. If you get a table type question, I got a table type question in multi-source reasoning. So there is just so much information that you have to juggle, and you really have to practice more. It's not like something, so it's a skill beyond something. Okay, it's very logical, it's very common sense, like it's very obvious, so to speak. The only thing is you need to practice more, you need to be more cognizant of where are those critical data points. When you solve so many tests, when you solve 8, 10, 20, 25 tests, it becomes second nature to you, that okay, this is where the data points are, this is what I need to see to solve this particular question. So that is pretty much it in multi-source reasoning. Once that you have cracked, everything is done for. Secondly,
part was tough or easy? I mean, comparatively.
Table analysis, I got CR questions. I mean, it was not table analysis at all. It was 2 CR questions clubbed into one. Right. So you get one part to strengthen, one part to assumption, something like that. Okay, so that's it. One passage, 2 CR questions. It is very straightforward. I would say somewhat easier than you get if you're doing good on CR and verbal section. So even easier than that. So if you have done the CR bit, then the 2-part analysis, I don't think will be as tricky as as you make it out to be. Graphical interpretation, I think of all the IR sections, it was the easiest for me. I mean, those questions were positive, negative correlation. It's like so well given, the material. It's just right there. Okay,
such questions.
Give it a second thought. So
right.
I think
Manan, Jignesh, I'll have to just
sure
interrupt. Manan has to leave at 9:15, so I just want him to wrap up. What was the toughest part of the DI section for you? Like, really, what would you advise? Like, multi-source, you said, but apart from that, graph, table, and 2-part, what was really the tough part for you?
Apart from the multi-source reasoning, I would say for the graphs, you really need to see where the graph is falling in. So there were instances where very close approximations were needed within the graph. And you really need to understand what exactly mean mode median is. We know this, but they are asked in a trickier format, wherein you might give it wrong if you do it in a hurry or not pay attention to detail. And
Teaching material. Yeah, sorry, sir. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
no, I was just saying that other than that, it's more of critical reasoning and your understanding of numbers. Nothing new, no surprises, I would
So
say.
what I've seen in the official materials of IR and what I've been teaching also, there were a lot of questions on, let's say, time, speed, distance, and probability, and a bit of figures like geometrical figure. Anything like that still, or that is not coming now?
There were questions in on arithmetic, of course, based
Mhm.
on mixtures and allegations. There were questions on profit loss that I got in data sufficiency. There were questions from mean, median, mode, and probability as well that I got in data sufficiency. But but there was no coordinate geometry or some line slope. There were no questions on
I was
this.
asking more in the IR part, not in the DS. But DS is obvious that it will be
Okay.
there.
In the IR, I can say that there was only arithmetic, but none of probability over there.
All right. Manan, if you have to leave, in that case, you may please leave the discussion because I know at 9:15 you have to leave. So just let us know. And if there is something that you want to add as the final tip or something that you definitely wanted to share, can share and then leave. And then we'll continue with the other two. Yeah.
No, I would just focus on that, focus on the time strategy part, wherein stick to the time limit and don't overspend on some questions, because some questions might come bit tough on which you might lose your time and the overall exam. And don't rely much on the review section. Just have a uniform pace, maintain the pace right from the beginning. If things come tough, just bookmark and move ahead, but don't bookmark a lot of questions. For the DI section, you can prepare to the next level. Don't just take it casually as some people took the IR. Just read it thoroughly, follow the sets that are given on the top portal, and that would be more than sufficient, I would say. And also, one last thing I would like to add is, many students used to say that the top quant questions or the LSAT questions or the LSAT mocks that we are giving are a bit tough, and I don't think this will come in the GMAT. These were some questions that some students used to say that. I would like to say that you need practice of that level. That's what's coming in the actual exam. And I can say this with conviction that those questions are the true representation of what you'll get in the GMAT. So don't hesitate in solving the LSAT questions. Those are really, really required in doing this focus edition.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for your time. I know it was difficult for you to manage it, but thank
No
you.
worries. No worries.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. All the very
Yeah.
best.
Right. Maurya, one more thing here. So when you said in the DI section particularly, what should they be preparing and how should they be going about it? Were there any major surprises in terms of like blocking your time, that there was so much time taking or something like that? Just give me some more idea about it.
Sure, sir. So I would like to go at a say a topic level on this one because as Jignesh and Manan already said that multi-source reasoning was a bit tough. The reason was simply because they were trying to trick you with a lot of information that was not necessary. And I even found a complex graph which had a lot of diagrams fit into one place, and so it made it even more confusing for me to just understand what's going on at the end of the day. But once I started filtering through things, I could see clearly what they are asking. And it was essentially look at the X coordinate for the Y, the relevant Y coordinate. So it really did not make much sense to beat my head over it. But I could only identify it once I spent a little good amount of time behind it, figuring out the same. And the first thing is definitely work on your reading speed, definitely work on the grasping speed, because in such questions, they will try to bombard you with a lot of theory. And most of it won't be really necessary for you to get the answer right, let's say. At the end of the day, that's the goal. And so I would say read fast, read what's relevant, try to understand, and then move on to what the question is asking. Before understanding what the question is asking, there's no point going through the data and trying to, filter out what's important and what's not. So I think that's a key element over here. Uh, Graphical interpretation, again, I had some 20 boxes in a single flow chart, and that was like I got a bit tense at that moment that what are they asking, but I had to essentially focus on only four. Now that tells everything what they are trying to do over here. So again,
Right.
this is theory. And table analysis, two-part, pretty standard, no surprises there. They brought a lot of CR into that. They tried to bring strength and weaken into the two-part bit. But again, it was fairly simple. I did not see any challenge over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing, I just wanted to ask the last thing here, that when you say that these were the sections and data sufficiency questions per se, any topic that was underrepresented, overrepresented, etc. in your case?
So I think overrepresented, I would definitely say I found from the 7 questions, I found some 2 or 3 PNC arrangement particular questions and 1 or 2 probability questions. So a lot of it came from there. Now it might be special to my case, but
Right.
yeah, I'm just putting it out there that happened. And but again, the questions were not that challenging. So might be just by luck. It might have happened just by luck.
And you were saying so much data was thrown at you and very little was useful. I remember teaching one multi-source reasoning question. Full 3 tabs are there. 2 and 3 tabs are not even once used for 3 or 4 questions. Like not even once. Just the first tab gives you all the answers. So that's a lot of surprise. This is again an official thing only that we have really taught. So this and Jignesh, any particular surprises on this section? What they should be cautious about? Because there has been a lot of talk about it, a lot of black box mystery around it. So if you can give some more idea about it.
I think it's all a hubbub actually. People are just panicking a little bit, but there's nothing to be worried about, I would say personally. Because the questions are, there is no particular special skill that is required for IR section, right? It's all there. It's just the practice bit. It's just that you have to be familiar with those type of questions. When you see that type of a graph, like Maurya was saying, he got 20 boxes and one big graph. I got a matrix and, it had some formula to it. But it's just that you need some familiarity with the questions. You just need some practice behind it. And I really don't think it tests a particular set of skills. If you talk about RCCR, you talk about trading speed, you talk about critical thinking. It's all the same here. There is no special skill required. Time management, definitely, if you talk it about as a skill, it is definitely there. DS, I found many work rate and time speed, distance speed questions. Some probability questions also. One particular graphical interpretation question I got, which was mixed with probability, but it was so easy. I mean, if you know that 1 divided by 9 is 0.11111, both tabs are done within like about 20 seconds. It's that simple.
So I think we are kind of done with this. Let's take the questions asked. Please, guys, don't bombard. We already have a lot of questions. So if you can see, let's see. So Focus Edition adaptive. So yes, it is adaptive. It has been confirmed by GMAT, definitely. One more thing. Did you get any conditional reasoning question? So any question that you can recall?
I can take this up. I got, I think, 3 questions from conditional reasoning in my CR. So
okay, Maurya said probably nothing, right? Yeah.
I got 3 questions from that. I got 2 questions from boldface. So quite a bit of weightage on conditional reasoning there. So I think, when we talk about inference, should be one of the topics that we should focus on.
Right. Another, everybody got 4 passes. So this is done. Bookmarking is not really a very good idea. It's a sort of trap. Just remember. I mean, not in the sense of the word trap, but yes, it's not something that you should use excessively. Arithmetic has been asked in a lot of quantity for Maurya, and let's see. The scores and percentiles are around the same. Another thing somebody is asking, share the ESR. The report comes after 3 or 4 days. So nobody has the ESR right now. Do we have coordinate geometry? One question Jignesh got, not much. Is Quant harder comparatively? I don't think so at all. Quant is not harder, you can say. Another thing, many face, okay, how many DS questions in DI? Different, 7 to 10, you can say, and number. This is totally different for different people. Okay, missed the overall marks attained. Tougher than the GMAT old edition. I will say, okay, whatever I've understood from the feedback I've received, toughness is not the point. What happened over so many years, we knew about that okay, GMAT means SCCRRC, means math and PS and DS. Now suddenly, because there is no much information about the DI section, it will take some time to settle in. And that is why we have created 25 sectionals and mocks. Please go through all of them. Earlier, people used to avoid that. Okay, do I need to do all the 25? They used to ask, and used to say, okay, 6 to 8 tests are enough. In this case, we cannot say that thing. Utilize Quant 700 to 800 full data sufficiency sets and a lot of LSAT RCs, definitely. So, found logical reasoning questions in mock tests. Logical reasoning is the same as critical reasoning. So critical reasoning is anyway part of it. Okay, will it be possible to switch to GMAT Focus Edition? It's an admin related questions, but right now we'll not say. ESR right now is not available. It comes after 3 or 4 days. Okay, GMAT is becoming like CAT. If you think so, then it's fine. Those of you who know about it, I definitely do. All of these people know. I will not say it is becoming like the CAT. One thing on the CAT, you can solve only half the questions of 40%, and you can actually get a very, very good percentile. Not at all like that. In the math section, I think it's easier than the CAT math section. In the data insight section, you can genuinely say that, yes, the skills required. Always remember, I have a very strong thing to tell. Reading skills, not reading skills means RC. Reading skills means interpreting information very quickly. Like, what is something trying to say? If I'm rereading, let's say, and in a long DI set, in a long IR set, if I'm reading and rereading, I wasted all my time. Another, what sort of graphs are asked? Bar chart, pie chart, spider, scatter, all kinds of graphs are asked. Absolutely all kinds. No such thing. I mean, you can't say. Another thing, how does the adaptive algorithm stack up against the current? This is not something we can answer. This is an official thing. We will never know the exact algorithm of either of the tests. Quant new section has data sufficiency is part of data insights. Quant, there is no DS in the quant section. What score is a good score? I don't think right now we can answer. We can only answer the percentile, and percentiles will remain the same. So if you thought 700 was a good score, then 90 percentile, whatever it is, 90 percentile is 700, is whatever 90 percentile maps to. If you thought 760 was a good score, 99th percentile, whatever 99th percentile maps to. So paper similar to official mocks. Okay, can you comment on that, please? The 2 official mocks that we have, do you think the paper was kind of similar, or you feel it was higher in difficulty? I feel it was higher from the analysis you've given me, but still would like to hear fresh thoughts on it.
For my personal case, sir, I think it was pretty much the same. If I would give a little bit higher on the, but a very tiny bit higher on the official exam or on the attempt that I gave. But I think that the official mocks are pretty representative. They give you the kind of same mix of questions and a good experience overall, because not on the end of DI, although I faced definitely a little more challenge on the end of DI. I had to calculate much more, stay on my toes, keep hunting for relevant information. But yeah, for the other 2 sections, it was pretty much the same.
Jignesh, what is your take on this from the official 2 mocks?
From the official 2 mocks, purely on the difficulty level, definitely bit more difficult. If you are aiming for that score, you should not look at difficulty level over there. But as far as the mix of questions is concerned, that is pretty much the same.
Okay, there's another question, exit strategy for tricky verbal questions. This is discussed in the classes. It's too detailed an answer to be taken in this right now. Strategy for students who are preparing for classical GMAT, and now I think there is no strategy. If you want to shift, you just have to study the new exam. What is the strategy? RC, CR, Quant, data sufficiency, everything remains the same. You have to prepare way more for the data insight section. Okay, will you be able to give the focus edition with the current preparation? You will have to prepare with the practice content and the data insights. Okay, CR more mathematical in approach. I don't think I've heard that, but CR is anyway to some extent mathematical in approach. I mean, at least too logical, so you can fit. So was there any, would you like to comment? Anything mathematical in CR?
Not necessarily mathematical. So as I said, I got some, conditional reasoning questions, and I got some boldface questions. So obviously boldface questions are not so mathematical usually, but the conditional reasoning questions, yes, if you're thinking about Venn diagrams and other methods to solve, then definitely some amount of quantitative you have to make sure, that you are familiar with those conditional reasoning concepts. One question that I was seeing about accepting or canceling the scores, you don't get the option here to accept or cancel the scores. I have written an email as well. So
You can do that after the official score is out. I think you can do that.
Yeah, and not on the test center, you cannot. Yes.
Right. And it's again any technical glitches. Nobody has told me anything like that. So that is I. Should we go with the new or the old edition, guys? This is an endless question. There is no answer to this. Frankly, you could go with either. If you get a good score on either, the score will be valid for 5 years. It depends on whether you are really well prepared or not. How many questions will be there in one RC? They're saying 4 and 3. So this. How much time to spend? You will not know how many questions are there. It is the same, I think, as previous question. Online and center exams, the difficulty level the same. Overall, we'll say the same because both of them had 770 scores and both have got similar scores on their test attempt right now. So I think, yes, it doesn't make any difference whether you write from home or not. And one person got more arithmetic, one got more algebra, one got conditional reasoning, one got no conditional reasoning, one got more RC, one got more CR. So, I mean, this is endless. What can we say about it really? Okay, scoring and focus edition. Okay, once again, the same questions, I think. So what order did he follow? Maurya, you can tell.
So I went through the quant, verbal, and then DI section. It was my most comfortable route that I usually take.
Right. Manan, I think, is the faculty only. There's no ESR for focus edition. Yeah, for ESR is the same as the report because report, the GMAT has said, will be more comprehensive this time. Apart from mock tests, I don't think you'll need any practice. Frankly, there's no practice available. If you look at the entire internet and all the companies combined for the DI section, barely anybody is offering anything. The way the mocks are being offered, they are not really tuned to the focus edition. So no extra practice is needed. Okay, what score to target? Once again, please look at percentile. There is no such thing that whatever had been asked, there is nothing different. I'm just reading the questions and answering. If SC is a bone of contention, I don't know what to say. Then you can go for the focus edition if time is available for you. Both version in terms of syllabus, we have already answered it. I hope this is okay. Let's see other questions also. If there is DS been eliminated, no, DS is asked in the data insights section. If B schools take it negatively if the score is less? I think we've been talking to the officials from the GMAT, SEMA and others, and they said not at all because it is the percentile only that will. Is DI taken in consideration for score? Yes, it is. Better at quant than verbal. Want to apply in round 2? You can take the focus edition. This is more tilted towards quant. Doesn't mean verbal is less here. Verbal is one full section, and I believe IR is half verbal. I personally have always felt so. So yes. Is quant 700 to 800 really good? Yes. Except geometry, you can do everything. How much time is required? This is really not something we can answer. Okay. So many other questions are really the ones. So let's see. 99 percentile in the focus edition. Please see the table released by GMAT. That will give you an idea. No unmarked or trial questions. No, there is no information about it. So we don't know experimental questions. Okay, how do we compare? Once again, this is all available. How many LSAT papers do you recommend? I will recommend a lot of practice of long RCs. Genuinely a lot of practice, guys. It will improve your CR also. It will improve your IR also overall. Trust me. So this is something that I've been saying. Even in the math thing, as Maurya said, there was too many traps. And the traps you can do better if your reading skill is good. And you can actually see through the traps. Will practicing from OGs help in verbal and quant sections? The new OGs, obviously, they will be definitive help. No question. Because last time 755 is a good score. 755, I think, is 100 percentile or something. And 725 is 99th. I don't exactly remember. Till when the old format can be given? January 31st. Let's see. What quant material is mandatory to practice? Please remember everything that we've been saying. For both editions, just leave the topic of geometry if at all something has been there. More or less the same things are there in the questions. So I guess we can wrap it up here. Everyone, thank you for joining in. I hope we've been able to give, and we'll give you more and more information. Right now, only 3 faculty members have written. When the students write on a daily basis, as we get scores, we'll start getting scores and experiences. And this is not going to be too difficult by any standards, just that you cannot rely only on concepts. You genuinely have to practice a lot more. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining in, and thank you, Maurya and Jignesh. Right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Great addition, great insights, and lots of information for me as well. Obviously, it's new, so there's a lot to take in. But I don't think our students will struggle if they practice and study the way I think it's there.
Definitely, sir. It was a fun and exciting experience, honestly.
Super, super. Chalo. All right. Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.